I really like him. I'll be playing him in all of my personal DFS lineups. I definitely think I like the fact that 49.5 receiving yards for his player prop. I like the over on that as well. I just think he's in line for a really nice season overall, and I think it gets started in week 1.
We weren't exactly sure what was going to happen with Cam Newton. He gets released, and now we have this rookie coming in, someone that was extremely accurate in college. And Jakobi Myers, actually, I believe, at least in reception perception and last year, is one of those other guys that people don't understand how good he was at times last year at getting open. So Jakobi Myers just seems like another guy that's severely underpriced. I'm sure a lot of people are trying to scramble to their waiver wires even before week 1 to see if they can pick this guy up. I mean, he's their number 1 wide receiver, and he wasn't being drafted as such. And on FanDuel specifically, 5,400, another guy that's just way too cheap. What are your thoughts on him?
I love Jakobi Myers. I think he's the receiver that I drafted most all offseason because, at different times in like way back in the offseason, he was like a 17th, 18th round best ball pick. And obviously he shot way up the radar throughout the offseason. When I started honking about him, a lot of others started honking about him as well. But obviously the Mac Jones ascension to the starting quarterback position really, I think, just boosts the passing ceiling of this entire team. And also like just the play volume perspective, New England was sub 1,000 plays last year overall as an offense. That's extremely low for what we expect from them. Obviously, like Mac Jones is probably not going to be Tom Brady. I don't think that's too much of a leap either to say that, but I think they can get back to their usual play style, their usual passing game outlook in general from a volume perspective with Mac Jones back there. And I think that just Mac Jones' skill set and Jakobi Myers' skill set is just like a perfect marriage. All of those quick hitting slants, digs on RPOs and play action plays that Mac Jones was doing in college, Jakobi Myers is going to fit perfectly in there. And as you mentioned, people just don't give Jakobi Myers enough credit for how good he is. 72% success rate versus man coverage last year in reception perception. A guy that consistently gets open outside, gets open inside, is probably going to be on the field for like 100% of the snaps. He was pushing that in several games last year too. And despite the addition of Nelson Aguilar, who I think is going to be more of like a clear out deep threat, the tight ends there obviously will, Jonnu Smith, Hunter Henry, they'll be middle of the field dominators as well. But I think Myers is the guy who wins at every level, is the more complete receiver than everybody else. And again, simply way too cheap, way too underrated in redraft leagues. And, you're looking at a defense in Miami. I mentioned Jakobi Myers' ability to separate versus man coverage. Miami's one of the most man coverage heavy teams in the entire NFL. So even though they have a good secondary, I think Myers is in line for a ton of targets, a ton of layup targets with Mac Jones there, and is just too good of a player at getting open for him to flunk in this matchup here. I really like him. I'll be playing him in all of my personal DFS lineups. I definitely think I like the fact that 49.5 receiving yards for his player prop. I like the over on that as well. I just think he's in line for a really nice season overall, and I think it gets started in week 1.
I love the Jakobi Myers call. Obviously, he's going to be the guy that we're looking for volume in this offense that should be elevated for sure without Cam Newton. And the thing I like about it from a DFS perspective is that you mentioned it. Like, this secondary is pretty strong. We got Byron Jones, Xavier Howard, all of these guys. But if he's separating at an elite rate against this type of coverage, I think that's something that people probably don't take into effect as much as they should. So 5,400, another guy that's just too cheap. And I think this is going to be kind of an interesting game. I don't know if it's going to be super popular. The total isn't super high compared to some of the other ones. So Jakobi Myers might be one of those guys that kind of flies under the radar. We're going to talk about pivots later with TJ Hernandez, but at kind of a similar price point to someone like Marvin Jones, like Jakobi Myers might end up being a guy that you could get a little bit lower owned in tournaments. So